Welcome back to Nobby on Cars, where we're on location in Alicante taking a covered ID.7 for a first test drive. The embargo for the full review of the car will lift in just a couple of weeks, so make sure you hit subscribe to the channel. But first, let's hit the roads here in sunny Spain and put the ID.7 through some paces. So behind the wheel of the Volkswagen ID.7 is a very spacious cabin. If I look around me, I can't show you anything, but trust me on this. You'll get a sense of the Passat CC. Do you remember the little touches of the dashboard and that? Certainly the Arteon. There is no doubt that the interior finish of this car is a step up to what we've seen in the past. And Volkswagen are pitching this car at the mid to upper, the B segment as they call it. So the question is, will this type of car be something that you can tempt perhaps an Audi A6, an A5 Sportback owner who's maybe driving a diesel or a petrol? Will they be tempted by the ID.7? And from what I've seen so far, I think it would be rude not to have a look, because this is perhaps a level above what we've come to. I mean, there are, you know, things like the Touareg and stuff. It's not like Volkswagen can't do premium. We all remember the Phaeton, but this in the ID range is certainly something that hasn't been seen before. Plenty of power. It's still rear wheel drive. It's just over 280 brake horsepower or 210 kilowatt of power. It's got enough urgency to it. It's quite a long car. It's similar setup from the MBB platform, such as the ID Buzz. It's that kind of space of an interior, that sort of wheelbase. So it really is a very, very spacious car, and it's not a negative thing in the drive. The overhangs are very, very close to the edges of the car. It also has a low center of gravity, obviously, because this is a sedan. That's another benefit of these cars, which is also the most aerodynamic car Volkswagen have produced in an electric car. And because this isn't a big bulk of mass sailing through the air, it really is a much more efficient design of car when it comes to an EV. And that's something that I wonder, will that make this style of car come a little bit back into flavour? We've all, you know, seen plenty of Tiguans and things like that on the road. Maybe over the last few years, something like a Passat just isn't as common a sight on Irish roads. But I think cars like the ID.7 and things like the Ioniq 6, they are cars that now would suddenly come back into fashion because they look better, but they are more efficient to own and run. That initial bite, or sometimes a little bit of, do you want regen braking or do you want friction braking, is still evident. It's a feature of kind of any electric car really, but it's still present on the ID.7. If you really do want to bring it to a sudden standstill, you've got to put a decent amount of pressure on the brake pedal. So Volkswagen have confirmed that the haptic buttons will be a thing of the past. Will that make them a collector's item if your car has haptic buttons in the future? Time will tell. The ID.7 has got haptic buttons, but that was confirmed by Volkswagen a few weeks ago. There's other bits and features of this car that if you come back to us later on in the month, when the second embargo has lifted, we'll be able to tell you even more about the car, the inside of it, some changes that this car is getting for the first time in the Volkswagen range. So that's an incentive to subscribe to the channel and come back for that second video when we will have the ID.7 in far more detail. The feedback behind the steering and some of that, very much business as usual compared to kind of any of the ID range so far. I can't say there's any massive difference in feedback in the steering. Yes, it handles a little bit better, obviously, because it's got that lower center of gravity, but it is still quite a long car. So it's not to say you feel the length of it at all times, but you're conscious that you're driving something relatively wide, relatively long. Very little noise over the A-pillars. Not a particularly windy day, to be fair, and I'm not, as I said, driving on a motorway, so it's hard to get a true sense of how much airflow and how much sound is there, but certainly 70, 80 kilometers an hour, even 90 kilometers an hour today, you get a sense that it's very, very quiet and refined from the outside world. So much of this car is still a secret that we're getting a look at today. We're not even allowed. I've had to cut the angle you're seeing today on this film I've had to cut out the glass roof, so we can't even see that. I've been able to see it. I can't even, can I say it's lovely? Am I allowed? No. I have somebody here who's, everything is a secret. If I say anything that I'm not allowed to say, I will just disappear. No animals have been harmed in the production of this car and the vehicle. Everything is animal free. One thing I'm noticing about that actually in more and more electric cars is the wear and tear on things like the steering wheel isn't as noticeable, because that kind of natural shine you get with leather isn't there. So actually there's a potential that your electric car interior will look fresher for longer. Terms and conditions apply. A lot of stuff is standard on this car, so the augmented head-up display, augmented reality, which is really, really good. We've seen that in other Volkswagen models in the Audi range. That'll be standard, as is the 15-inch screen, which is angled slightly towards the driver on the left-hand side. I'm hoping that will obviously turn the other way for those of us at home when we get that. There's 10 different colors for ambient lighting in the car. You can get an optional extra of 30. Dynamic chassis control will be an optional extra in the car also. So really you can go as crazy as you like on the options list in the ID.7, and I think you'll end up with a very, very well spec'd luxury VW if you do that. Of course, we've no idea of prices just yet, and the other Irish journalists with me on the trip today, we've just been speculating, will it be late 60s? Where will the car start? Where it will end up is very much up to you, because the more of those option boxes that get ticked, obviously. But it is fair to say that hopefully the Irish version of the car will come very well spec'd as standard. That will probably mean you'll get a premium enough price, but if you're kind of getting a lot of options on the car for that slightly expensive price list, then you might be okay with it. Final thing I'll say is, if it's all about trying to be able to compare this car to things. If you have ever sat in the back of a Skoda Superb and you've figured how much rear legroom is in the back of that, I'm not overdoing it to say that the ID.7 has got similar levels of rear legroom. So if you've got a family, if they're all getting longer legs as time goes by, or you're someone who maybe likes something that feels a bit like a limousine of sorts, and that's the kind of interior space. Interior space is one of the main priorities in the ID.7, and that very much has been delivered. So thank you for coming with us this far in the video. This first drive, this covered drive is what this is called. That means the interior of the car can't be shown. There's camouflage all over the exterior of the vehicle. I've seen it in the flesh without the camouflage. I think you're going to be very impressed when you do get to see it. That embargo will lift later on in April, and if you come back to us then, we'll give you a full tour inside and outside of the all-new Volkswagen ID.7, which realistically will probably be on driveways in Ireland from the start of 2024, but it will go on sale at the very end of this year. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.